Right now on 11 Alive Plus, it's been 1 year since Hurricane Helene tore through the Peach State. And while the metro area was mostly spared, parts of our state were not so lucky. Now, 1 year later, many are still working to put their lives back together. Thanks for joining me here on 11 Alive Plus. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb. Over these next few minutes, you'll see the power of the storm, how many across our community came together, and the impact of Helene still being felt today. But first, let's rewind the clock 1 year as Helene tore through Georgia. At the end of September 2024, a tropical wave in the Western Caribbean grew stronger and became a destructive storm slicing right through the state of Georgia. This storm that started down in the Caribbean eventually started strengthening over the Gulf of Mexico to become a Category 4 hurricane as it made landfall in Florida's Big Bend area near Perry, Florida, just before midnight on September 26th. But landfall did not stop the storm. It maintained hurricane strength well inland with hurricane warnings issued as far north as Spalding County, and Helene ended up holding hurricane force until just east of Macon. Then it was downgraded to a strong tropical storm as it moved up through North Carolina and then finally diminished in parts of Kentucky and into areas of Tennessee. Many of the National Hurricane Center's initial forecast track originally took the center of the hurricane straight through the city of Atlanta, but the track eventually moved more to the east, putting us on the less active part of the storm. While we were spared the stronger winds that Augusta and East Georgia endured, the metro area was hit hard by flooding. That's because a predecessor rain event made our impacts more unique. Dr. Rick Knabb is the former director of the National Hurricane Center and current tropical expert at the Weather Channel.
A major hurricane is going to be really moisture loaded, and because it was so large and fast moving, it rained hard, it rained for a long time, and Helene retained a lot of its structure after leaving the Gulf and coming through northern Georgia and into North Carolina. Very heavy rainfall event that caused significant flash flooding.
Helene moved through Georgia on September 27th, dumping 3.38 inches of rain in Atlanta. But that alone didn't cause the flooding. We actually had more tropical rain before Helene's landfall. On September 25th, Atlanta picked up 3.42 inches of rain. Then on the 26th, we got 4.32 inches of rain. Our National Weather Service issued its first ever flash flood emergency for much of the area. Add another 3.42 inches of rain when Helene passed through, and that's almost a foot of rain in 3 days.
The flash flood emergencies were issued for good reason, because that's when you're talking about a flash flood warning that's amped up. It's not just water-covered roads. This is community-wide flooding with a catastrophic threat.
That led to water rescues in neighborhoods along Peachtree Creek.
Some of our 11 Alive viewers said you need to come over here. Let me get out of the way because you can see the rescuers, the swift water teams are going in right now.
And in northeast Georgia in Rabun County, 14.64 inches of rain fell, the highest rainfall total in Georgia associated with Helene. For most of us, Hurricane Helene was a temporary inconvenience, but in pockets of metro Atlanta, it was a destructive storm that brought flooding that forced families out of their homes for months. 11 Alive senior investigator Rebecca Lindstrom reveals why several homeowners had no idea they were even at risk.
FEMA flood maps tell us the likelihood swollen waterways will impact our house and whether we have to buy flood insurance to live there.
So we're right here.
On the map, Haley Fuchsia's Atlanta home in Westover Plantation looks safe from what the government calls a 100-year flood risk. But Fuchsia learned storms don't use a map for directions. Palmer Spalding, who asked not to be identified on camera, also remembers the day Helene hit.
It was just unbelievable to see nature put that much water in one place so fast.
Yet a different kind of map would suggest these residents shouldn't have been surprised.
That exact same FEMA event that says you were not at risk?
Fully in it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm right here.
This map is from a company called First Street. It says the flood risk in Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, and Gwinnett is actually 8 times greater than what FEMA reports. Maps like these have raised a lot of questions in the past year, so we went to Georgia Tech civil and environmental engineering professor Herman Fritz to understand the difference.
It comes down to what kind of events are we trying to simulate.
Fritz says FEMA relies on historical flood data to determine how rivers might swell. But First Street tries to predict the future of things like climate change and growing storm intensity. Remember, Atlanta broke a century-old record with more than 11 inches of rain in 48 hours when Helene hit, according to state of Georgia climatologists. Pair that with a lot of development.
The land is less able to absorb the rainfall, and we are going to see places flood that hadn't flooded before.
That's why First Street says it also maps the risk of flooding from overwhelmed urban drainage systems.
But it was just coming up through the floors.
That is the kind of flooding that impacted these homes at Westover Plantation. We talked with Fritz in front of a model of a New Orleans levee that broke during Hurricane Katrina. He says building and maintaining the right infrastructure is critical.
In Atlanta, and we literally have storm sewer pipes that are more than 150 years old.
While predictive models are filled with uncertainties, and models like First Street require a subscription to see, homeowners here say it would have been helpful if there were a way to give residents a clearer picture of the risk so they knew how to prepare, because this type of flooding can be avoided.
I've heard of these little things that you can put down that can alert you, like your phone, when water hits it. It would have woken us up so that we could actually get up and start trying to get water out.
If you dam up that drainage hole and the area around the powder room toilet, with those stoppers, the water can't even come in.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, truly.
In Atlanta, Rebecca Lindstrom, 11 Alive News, investigates.
Helene caused more damage than any other storm to Georgia's power grid. Meteorologist Melissa Nord walks us through the process to restore power to nearly 2 million customers and why we may still feel the effects of the storm years later.
Signs of Helene's wrath are still evident 1 year later, with blue tarps and small debris dotting Georgia's hardest-hit cities and towns. The storm left Georgia's power grid in a state of chaos.
It was the most destructive storm to Georgia Power in our history.
Georgia Power CEO and Chairman Kim Green says 1.5 million customers were without power the morning after Helene hit, and another 435,000 through EMCs.
As I traveled the state, I saw so much destruction that was really even hard to describe. So what started as a storm restoration effort with 10,000 people helping ultimately grew to 20,000 responders from across the country.
Kim Brown represents Georgia EMC's 41 electrical co-op members.
That pre-Helene rainfall really saturated the ground, which makes it very easy for trees to fall and fall on top of power lines, unfortunately.
More than 28,000 power poles broke, impacting hundreds of substations. And over 450 high-voltage transmission structures and lines needed repair or replacement.
It takes a lot to bring down a transmission line. They are built to withstand lots of different types of weather.
Within 2 days, Georgia Power restored electricity to 500,000 customers. It took 4 days to restore power to half of Georgia EMC customers. When small towns saw power crews driving up to begin restoration, the feeling was nothing short of relief.
On day 11, I was in Vidalia, Georgia.
Thank you! Woo!
And as all of our bucket trucks were coming into their staging site after a long, hard day, and these folks worked 16-hour days, they were greeted by a marching band and children with signs saying, "We love you and be careful and thank you."
Power restoration was a monumental accomplishment.
These systems took more than 80 years to build, and they were able to restore and rebuild those within 3 to 4 weeks' time.
But the storm's impact still lingers, with the cost of repairs, including infrastructure and overtime, higher than what utility companies budgeted.
Unfortunately, Hurricane Helene, the costs of that storm restoration did exceed the storm reserve. So we will work with our Public Service Commission to establish a schedule for recovering that cost over time.
Meteorologist Melissa Nord, 11 Alive News.
Still to come, Hurricane Helene didn't just rip through homes and power lines, it tore through Georgia's timber belt. And for landowners and loggers, it's a long road to recovery as they're still working to pick up the pieces. Plus, how Operation Outreach America is still answering the call, making trips to help storm survivors rebuild. When Hurricane Helene hit 1 year ago, people needed help and they needed it fast. But they may not have expected that help to come from a 15-year-old who connected them with crucial resources. Caitlin Ross introduces us to Benji Martin, who sees this as a calling.
Benjamin Martin is at the controls.
Let me see what the band conditions are.
But you can call him
KQ4 KIS. Benji here.
Manning the Aries emergency radio frequency from his bedroom in Chamblee, Georgia.
Switching over to 146.760.
He takes his volunteer position seriously.
Roger that. I'm starting to reach y'all about 5:3, 5:4.
And when Hurricane Helene came barreling toward the southeast,
when that last storm front was coming through,
he was ready to serve at a moment's notice.
Schools were closing. They were telling us Atlanta's going to take a full-out hit.
His mom, Julianne, knew it was only a matter of time before he'd be called to help.
I contacted a school and said, hey, by the way, my kid's probably at the age of 15 going to be activated.
KQ4 KIS, how do you read?
Benji manned the radio overnight, prepared to answer anyone who made a call for help.
This repeater's dead. If you're trying to get help, switch to this one.
He helped locate a medically fragile woman missing in the wake of the storm.
He says, my job is to make sure that whoever's on the other side has somebody to hear them and that they know that they're going to get the help they need.
Sounds good. Richard, are you out there still?
The radio community has been the help he needed, too.
Just seeing how you're doing. Overall rag chew.
Finding friendship on the other end of the radio and real community with people who have a heart to serve.
The community, even if I'm going through a really bad day, they're always there to help, and we always kind of stick by each other's side.
And by his side, a fuzzy co-pilot.
Buns, so he is my bunny. He'll try and jump up around kind of in that little area there.
Benji is always right here.
See you in a bit.
Reporting for duty, there for whoever needs him.
We all have times where we need help and where we're at our lowest. And I find being able to help someone there, it's just something about it that just feels right. Like I'm making a difference. Thanks for being on KQ4 KIS Clear.
Reporting in Chamblee, Caitlin Ross, 11 Alive News.
Benji is now 16 and is starting a club at his high school to get other kids interested in becoming a ham radio operator. He was given a commendation for his work during Hurricane Helene, and while many communities have rebuilt and moved on, some people are still dealing with the aftermath. There's a 97-year-old man who's still waiting for help. Hunter Keeg reports.
At 97 years old, Angelo Crow is still cleaning up after Hurricane Helene.
It makes me sick every time I look at it.
When we first met Angelo last September, his Wheeler County home looked like this, trapped by fallen trees cut off from the world. Today, a year later, the trees around his house are gone.
I counted 231 trees now.
But massive pines still crush his barn and storage buildings. 4 tree removal companies have promised to help.
4 different people have told me, yeah, we'll come, and they haven't shown up.
The man who once would have handled this himself.
My daughter, and I'm not either, says don't use a chainsaw anymore, and I'm not going to climb a ladder anymore either.
Now waits for help that may never come. But Angelo isn't giving up. He's lived next to his childhood log house since 1933, surrounded by family buried in a cemetery in his yard.
And this is home. All my kinfolk are in the family cemetery.
Every morning, he says his prayers, meets his friends at McDonald's, and keeps the faith.
You don't want it to be like this forever, do you?
Oh, no. We'll get it cleaned up one of these days.
Yeah.
I have faith.
Still waiting, still hoping, still calling Wheeler County home.
Hurricane Helene didn't just rip through homes and power lines when it struck a year ago. It tore through Georgia's timber belt, and that's an industry that supports thousands of families and fuels products that we all use every day. Danielle Moss looks at the long road to recovery for landowners and loggers still working to pick up the pieces.
One storm, one force of nature, and a vast stretch of Georgia's timber was reduced to broken limbs and shattered livelihoods.
That was just one tree, and I knew the way it made me feel. I couldn't imagine the way other people felt that lost not a tree, but a house, lost family members.
Hurricane Helene changed the heart of Georgia's wood basket. Paper, lumber, and thousands of products come from these trees.
The nation's fiber supply comes from Georgia. If somebody likes a Sprite, that's not a real lemon and lime in there. That's terpenes that come from wood.
Hurricane Helene entered South Georgia as a Category 2 storm, with winds near 109 miles per hour. It held on to tropical storm force winds as it moved through Swainsboro and Yeoman's Timber Farm, land that's been in his family since the 1800s. A tree farm that started with 250 acres soon doubled, tripled, and multiplied to 2,500 acres.
Before Hurricane Helene, this field would be filled with 4,000 trees that were at least 60 to 70 feet tall. But now what you're seeing is the aftermath and almost a year-long process for cleanup.
But it was like playing pickup sticks. You know, to get this stuff up, you know, it's got root balls on it, they have to be cut off. It's laying like this in many cases, all splintered up, broken in half. And so the process is slow. Production cost almost doubled to get the wood up.
The Georgia Forestry Commission says Helene damaged nearly 40% of the state's timber, which includes 60% of Yeoman's crop. Trees planted now won't mature for at least another 15 to 20 years.
So this is a generational loss, and so that impact is going to be tough.
Those losses go beyond trees, threatening ecosystems and water quality. Crews like Pierce Timber Company push forward as the timber industry struggles to keep up with the demand post-Helene.
We're running as many track machines as we can where the timber's torn up the worst. We're able to save more of the wood for the landowner at that point.
For Chad Nimmer, it's not just about clearing what's on the ground, it's protecting whatever they can sell.
Either A, I don't have a market, or B, we've got a market, it's just going to take time. When you push somebody off, the longer the wood gets less valuable.
Another looming threat, wildfires that could spread fast as fallen timber dries out.
So next spring, as those fuels become cured a little bit more, especially after first frosts, you know, then all of a sudden we start having fires with roadblocks in our way.
Cleanup can cost up to $2,500 an acre, which is why there's federal aid and state assistance offering wildfire mitigation funds, temporary tax suspensions, and even a refundable tax credit as landowners replant and recover.
We see these rural counties that greatly depend on timber. I mean, that'll even trickle down to the offering plate on Sundays, right? So it's a huge deal for the state to step in and recognize the importance of that.
For some landowners, they'll never see the forest they once knew. But the next generation will. A recovery that won't be measured in months or years, but in decades.
Georgia showed its heart in the aftermath of Helene. While many worked to pick up the pieces, others looked to help a neighbor. Their stories next. One year after Hurricane Helene swept across central Georgia, some folks in Lawrence County are reflecting on how they helped those in need, like Holy Smokes in Dublin that provided meals for people hit by the storm, and Cadwell Church, who traveled to help hurricane victims in Old Fort, North Carolina. Madison Rick spoke with both groups on why they were called to help.
We really didn't plan North Carolina. It kind of planned us.
1 year, that's how long it usually takes to plan a full mission trip. But when the Cadwell Church got the call to help people affected by Hurricane Helene, they went immediately.
When we set out to help the folks in Old Fort, North Carolina, we knew that it was not going to be a one and done. It was going to be, we're going to continue returning until they're back up and going.
They returned to Old Fort 4 more times, helping to restore hope in the 2 homes of the Taylor family.
He didn't have any hope, none. And then as time went on and he saw that we meant what we were going to say, we're coming back. Now he just won't quit smiling.
Brent Redfern says that's why he does this work.
When you see someone go from having an extremely bad day to smiling, it just, you really can't put words to it.
And one Dublin barbecue restaurant owner says he shares in Redfern's commitment to helping those in need. Holy Smokes provided over 400 free meals to people in Dublin when the storm hit surrounding areas.
You demonstrate and you show and you work and, you meet people where the need is, and that's how you show people love.
Redfern says the homes are 90% finished. He says the church will continue their work in North Carolina until the Taylors are back on their feet.
Cadwell Church says they'll go back to North Carolina this fall to finish the home repairs. And even a year later, help keeps coming. Caitlin Ross shows how Operation Outreach America is answering the call by making trips to help storm survivors rebuild.
Inside a small storage unit in Cartersville,
Anything that you would ever need to keep someone alive.
Garrett Howell stays ready for emergencies.
CPR mask.
From hurricanes to scraped knees.
I call this the boo-boo kit. It's just Band-Aids and everything.
The shelves are stocked with tools to help. But what's stored on his phone tells the story of why he does it. Hundreds of photos documenting the destruction Hurricane Helene left behind and the people still helping.
It's been a year, but it feels like yesterday.
Howell and his nonprofit, Operation Outreach America, deployed to the disaster zone just hours after the storm hit.
Helene was in itself the worst storm I've ever seen in my life, and I hope I never see anything like that again.
The damage and heartbreak are still hard to process, and for Howell and other volunteers, helping is the only way to make sense of it.
We went up there with a few volunteers and we came back with an army.
That army has made dozens of trips to Western North Carolina, recovering bodies, delivering supplies, and rebuilding homes. In communities where people say help is hard to come by, they show up.
Grassroots organizations such as mine are there way before the government can even respond. We don't have the red tape to fall through. We can go in, jump in, and do things.
Howell says he won't stop because for people facing disaster, Operation Outreach America offers more than help. It offers hope.
I mean, there is a lot of love in this country. You just got to look for it.
Reporting in Cartersville, Caitlin Ross, 11 Alive News.
Operation Outreach America responds to natural disasters all over the country. And the day we spoke with Howell, he had just returned from the historic flooding in Texas. Thank you for your time as we look back at the devastation Hurricane Helene brought to our state, and with it, a new sense of hope and community as the rebuilding continues for some.